From the realm of NLP language patterns out there, there is a few specific ones you can use to unlock any limiting belief in anyone you speak to, including yourself. But there is a sequence to this, otherwise it would be too easy. Some language patterns are better to use in the beginning of an interaction, and some of them are better to use later as the interaction has improved. So we are going to use mostly patterns from the NLP meta model and a few others, and we are going to go through this process for yourself so you can see how it happens in your own head. From there you will have a background, a foundation to use it with anyone else you want. The first initial step to clarify what's happening is to choose one specific area where you know there is room for improvement in your life. What is, as you listen to this right now, what is one such area? Somewhere where you definitely know you could improve yourself, or where there are some results you still haven't really succeeded with. Basically anything where your life you can see is stagnant. It may be difficult to admit, but you know it is the truth at this point for you. Then, second step, you choose one specific observable sticking point within that area. For example, let's take those three phrases, those three beliefs. I can't lose weight. People don't respect me. It might be at your job, it might be in your family, wherever you interact with people. Or I just feel like I am behind in life. Those three are judgments, they are opinions, they are beliefs, therefore. And we are going to see how we can change all of them through very simple but tactical language patterns, and at the same time I am developing this process right here. You can do the same thing with your own main sticking point that arose in your head as I was maybe discussing this. What came to your mind as one specific sticking point, one specific problem, challenge that you still haven't found a solution for, at least nothing productive or sustainable over the long term. It may be related to those or anything else. The first thing we want to do is elaborate on the most negative term or the most negative judgment or the most negative feeling that is contained within those phrases. That is usually the biggest problem I see in beginners, because they understand how to use the meta model, how to ask questions to influence people's thoughts, to hypnotize them. They understand theoretically how that works, but when they are in front of somebody, they still don't ask the right questions and they still don't lead the mind of the person in the right way. What I usually center my mind on is strong emotions. What is the strongest, deepest, most negative feeling? It might be anger, suffering, hatred, sadness, despair, guilt, shame, I'm feeling ashamed, anything like this. We want to center on this, or the deep values, any huge philosophical take the person has on life. If they are a religious person, obviously I'm going to challenge that firsthand, or some of the key moments, the most important moments of their life. And finally, the perception of themselves. What is the perception they have of themselves when no one else is looking? Basically, when you are looking at yourself in the mirror, what do you see when nobody else is looking? Those are the main things I want to challenge. When I read phrases like this, or when I hear people saying those things, what I want to fish for in the beginning is which of those words is hiding a strong emotion, perception of themselves, that is an identity statement, or some philosophical or political take about what matters in life, or their own values, what is the most important to them in their life. Children, marriage, money, whatever it is. I want to center on this. In this example, I might center on, for the first one, lose weight. For the second one, respect. The sense of not being respected seems pretty strong to me in terms of the sense of inner worth, inner value. And the third one, I just feel like I'm behind. Behind seems more important to me than feel like, because feel like is just neutral, but behind, it is already negative. It is not a neutral feeling. It is already being negative right here. So those three are the main things my mind is being centered on when I hear any of those phrases. And once you have all of those, you ask simply the question, how do you know that? Which is why I said this was a confusing step for most people, because anyone understands the question, how do you know that? Anyone who has read an NLP book, beginner level, has read about the basics of the meta model and knows he should say, how do you know that to a client? But despite that, they still have trouble asking, how do you know that, on the right part of the sentence. If I ask, how do I feel like I'm behind in life? How do you know you feel that? Yes, that might be good, but I know the conversation is going to escalate much faster toward a resolution if I challenge behind, which is a more negative term than anything else. So in terms of clarity, we first clarify the most negative, emotionally loaded terms by asking, how do you know that specifically? With those language patterns right here, it will look like, I still can't lose weight. How do you not lose weight? Slightly mind-bending in the formulation on purpose. How do you not lose weight? How do you do to not being able to lose weight? Second one, how are they not respecting you? How do they do to not respect you? Specifically, use the words they say. Don't use the words you have interpreted. Don't try to reinterpret anything they say, at least not in the beginning of the conversation. How are they not respecting you? And for your problem, how do you know you have this problem? The thing you have thought about in the beginning, how do you know this thing can't change? The third one, how are you behind? Whatever is the negative term, you use that exact negative term and you combine it with how do you know this is happening? How do you know this is true? How do you know this is being stagnant in time, fixated, it can't change? How do you know that? Then we come into step 4, the juicy stuff that I love, that I like the most. It is going to be a recursive loop right here, because we are going to use those two questions from now as long as it is required, depending on how stuck and fixated and loaded the belief is in that person's head. We are going to use the questions from the meta model. What stops you from X or Y, and what would happen if X or Y? So what stops you from changing right now? What would happen if you could change? The first one is more aimed at the past, and the second one aimed at the future. But basically you use those normally on model operators. When they say, I can't change, what stops you from changing, or what would happen if you could? That is more the theoretical thing. For now, just remember the questions. What stops you from X or Y? What would happen if this or that? Those are some of the best questions I have ever seen and heard to make people's beliefs move forward and change. Very seldom did I see something as useful as those ones. If we take the examples we used so far, and I encourage you to do the same thing with your own thoughts, limiting thoughts, whatever it is that you are thinking about that is problematic for you in your life right now as I am speaking, you see this: I can't be consistent with my diet, after having asked, how do you not lose weight? I can't be consistent with my diet or with my workouts, or so I can't lose weight because I can't be consistent with the way I eat. What stops you from being consistent with your diet? What stops you from being consistent with your workouts? On the other side, what would happen if you were consistent with your workouts? What would happen if you were consistent with your diet? You are going to loop slightly in circles for a while, because obviously the first time you ask this, they will unveil something else. Oh, it is because this and that. Whatever they say, you say it again. Okay, fine. I cannot be consistent with my diet. What stops you from being consistent with your diet? Because people keep inviting me out and I can't just control myself. Great. What stops you from controlling yourself when you're being out with your friends? Because the temptation is too strong. What stops you, or what would happen if the temptation was not strong at all? At some point, something is going to be released. It is working, obviously, when the person has agreed that you touch their beliefs. If you try to force that on somebody, they will just resist. But when the person has agreed to be changed, has agreed that you could help, then asking that in a circle, what stops you from what would happen if at some point they are going to release something, to let go of something very deep. With the second one, how are they not respecting you? They just talk behind my back and make fun of me. Okay, what would happen if they stopped to make fun of you behind your back? What stops them, in your opinion, from stopping to talk behind your back? What would that look like? What would happen if they had already stopped? The last one, how are you behind in life? Because I just watch people around me and they have a much better life than I have. Cool. What prevents you from stopping to watch people around you? For example, what would happen if you stopped to watch what people are doing around you? What stops you from stopping to watch all of those people? What stops you from stopping to compare yourself with others? What would happen if you were finally stopping to compare yourself with those people? You keep digging like this in a loop until something new pops up. You keep being flexible until something new pops up that they haven't said yet. The closer you can get, again, to perception of oneself, I am just not worthy, I am a piece of shit, I am useless. Very deep identity statement, those are the ones we want to work on. Deep feelings, because I'm so pissed off about this, because I'm deadly scared about that, because I hate people, because I'm so guilty that I'm such a piece of shit. When you get to those deep negative emotions, this is the core of the belief. At this point, it's not the surface anymore, where people just don't change. It is the core where any action taken is going to have massive repercussions and changes in their life. And finally, once there has been some release, or you can see they are more calm, or you can see that they are becoming more enthusiastic because now they just had a new idea, a new breakthrough about, oh, this was what I needed to do, or like I could have done that from the beginning. It would have been 100 times easier if I had just done that. When you get to that type of breakthrough, that type of release where they finally get something different, or maybe when they are deeply confused, like, whoa, I never thought about that. I could never make up my mind like in that way. I never thought I could do that. Or they just ponder on it like, oh, and they stop like this and oh. When they are at this phase, either confusion or enthusiasm or very energetic because now they have figured out something new, then final step to really consolidate and build more resources around the change, you ask, if you had already gotten past this problem long ago, so time distortion, long ago, what would it look like by now? The time distortion, if you bring their mind into the future and you make them look back into the present or the past, but the present today, to how do they look like now that they have changed. So if you had already gotten past your problem, the main thing that is very difficult, confronting right now in your life, challenging for you in your life right now, related to this specific area you know that is really difficult for you to process, if this thing had already been over for a while, if you had already gotten past this thing a long time ago, then what would you look like by now? What would this look like from a distance? How would you look back on today and see yourself? What would you say about yourself? How would you see yourself differently now that you have changed long ago? This is aimed at helping the mind fortifying and validating the change can become persistent and constant and maintained throughout time, because too many people otherwise just get one good idea and then forget about it and then go back to their old ruminations and negative habits. When you can consolidate, the change is naturally going to be maintained throughout the next months and years of their life. They will create even more associations, helping to form the new identity of I am someone who has mastered this. It is not something I'm trying to achieve anymore. It is something I have accomplished because I am the kind of person who can do that. All of this process is definitely helping to get them more motivated about their life, to get them more confident about being able to change, at least courageous enough to try new things they haven't been able to try so far because of a lack of assertiveness in their own skills, potential, and growth and worthiness, maybe. You help them distance themselves from any trauma or negative ruminations they have been trapped into for too long, and you help them get to the next phase of their life. With that being said, with all of those things being said, you can find down below the document that will drastically help you if you haven't already read it, called The 7 Steps to Master Sleight of Mouth. It is a small document I wrote a few years ago to help people differentiate what kind of beliefs they need to change and what kind of beliefs are irrelevant to change in a conversation. You have that, and you can read all the phrases one by one, noticing where your conversations fit the most, or what is the best example of the kind of beliefs you are dealing with on a regular basis. And from there, you are going to be able to use those language patterns much faster, smoother, and with more increased ability, because you will think much less once you have developed the strong conviction that yes, it is possible, and yes, you are going to succeed.